I can already tell just by titling this video as I have, that if the comment section gets infiltrated by Christians, I'll be told I was never a Christian. And my simple response is, you're probably right, but I don't care. Before we start the video, I should clear the air a little bit. At this point, I wouldn't call myself an atheist, but atheism is probably the closest thing that describes where I am currently. Also, be sure to like and subscribe. I plan to post video essays whenever I have a good idea, but anyways, enjoy the video. This section includes various religiously traumatic experiences, including descriptions of mental health disorders. If you are not in the mental space to view, please skip to the timestamp on the screen, also in my description. Thanks. I found out at the beginning of this year that I was bipolar. Basically, I'm normal most of the time, but sometimes I break into an episode that includes mood swings and possibly psychosis. In my case, it's mainly psychosis influencing my mood swings. My episodes usually consist of thinking I'm literally in hell. They're incredibly traumatic, and honestly I'm surprised I'm mentally well. But I use these experiences as my testimony, because everyone needs a testimony. I'd simply talk about how I experienced what hell was like, and once I gave my life over to Jesus, the anxiety and fear that came as a result of those experiences went away, which is partially true, but it isn't the entire story. To sum up the long story, I was basically traumatized into believing in Jesus. I don't think I would even have gone to church if it wasn't for my hellish experiences from bipolar disorder. After about 3 months of being a believer, I reflected on my experiences of bipolar disorder and realized how unjust God would be to send someone to hell for eternity. Naturally, I explored for solutions and found my answer in Universalism, the belief where everyone gets saved eventually and hell is temporary. I had a few phone calls with one Universalist who was incredibly knowledgeable, and I vividly remember converting on the spot of the first phone call we had. After that, I came out as a Universalist to my Christian friends, and was met with backlash and controversy. I couldn't understand why people thought this was such a condemning belief. It seemed to me to be completely harmless, and the evidence seemed to stack up that Universalism was true. I read books like That All Shall Be Saved by David Bentley Hart, and historical books on the subject like A Larger Hope by Ilaria Ramelli, both of which increased my knowledge and arguments for Universalism as a whole. Universalism eventually led to doubts of the Holy Spirit. If the Holy Spirit was real, why were there thousands of different interpretations of the same holy texts? Along with my reduced fear of hell, this was the beginning of my deconstruction. Admittedly, unlike a lot of others who have deconstructed from the faith, I didn't fight very hard to keep my faith. The only thing that kept me going was the hope that Universalism had for me. The timing of my deconstruction was about a month or so before final exams in college, so that's the main reason I didn't fight. But with the amount of doubts that flooded my mind, I saw myself in a losing battle with little to no ground to stand on. During this time, I started watching atheist content, mainly deconstruction stories. I wanted to understand why they deconstructed from the faith, but I didn't really think I'd become one of those many videos. Then I started to find arguments for atheism and couldn't refute them. YouTube channels like Believe It or Not and Deconstruction Zone were fundamental to my deconstruction journey. I was holding on by a thread, and every passing week I found more reasons to stop believing. I found myself realizing that the main reason I started believing was mainly a traumatic response. I needed an answer, and honestly found one, but now I was deconstructing. I found less and less reasons to keep believing. In an act of desperation, I reached out to some friends about my doubts. I had a list of doubts ranging from Old Testament God being evil to Jesus fulfilling 0 prophecies. None of their explanations gave me a good answer, and by this time I was already losing my identity as a Christian and couldn't even begin to call myself one. Within the same week, I personally renounced my faith and realized I simply don't believe anymore. And that was that. 6 months of belief and research, and I just couldn't believe anymore. If you're a deconstruction Christian, and a Christian wondering why I deconstructed, read the Bible, and explore the tip of the iceberg outside the Bible. That's how I deconstructed, mainly looking at the evidence and finding out that there was none. The aftermath of realizing I no longer believed hasn't been too crazy for me. I've come to begrudgingly accepting that once my life is over, it's likely back to the void and I'll never see my family again. It makes me sad if I think about it for long enough, but I realize it's probably better if I stopped believing, because instead of focusing on the horizon, I can focus on the here and now. I also don't have to worry about who is going to hell and who isn't. The burden is off of me now, and I can feel free to do whatever I want. I remember a point in my deconstruction, there was a sense of freedom, as I felt a piece of my beliefs die, and to be honest, that's a big reason of my deconstruction, the embrace of true freedom.